Greetings and welcome to the Badger Cave's West Wing, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Your sinuous hosts for this evening are myself, Supreme Doge in Charge, our polecat punster Hannah, Dr. Randomer Cam Panda at Large, Max Darrett Simpsonskin, not Nick Stahl from Sin City, and our Anchorilla Scott. This evening we'll be covering the following topics. Another teacher sleeps with her students, and this one may not be looking at the sex offender list. Audi found a new way to sell their expensive-ass cars, appeal to the demographic that controls the majority of the spending by pandering to how they don't make money compared to men. The unofficial Punch a Fascist Day might be coming to the Great White and Polite North, as U of T's Toronto Action Forum reports. Greece is very well known for its great philosophers, such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, as well as the Greek tragedies. Well, it's time for some changes, being the current year and all, so move over Greek tragedies and make room for gender study tragedies. I also wanted to tell you about the Twitter throttling, as reported by Scott Adams, but the tweet is unavailable. And finally, someone wrote a plea to college campuses asking that Milo Yiannopoulos not be banned from said campuses, also asking people who disagree with him to either start making actual arguments or GTFO. Doesn't really sound unusual, but the twist is, this article comes from The Guardian. I know. If you want to enjoy further personalized discussion with the Badgers on select topics, such as the amazing Milo defense, become a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And now we'll move on to the first story, which I will hand off to Max Darrett.
I thought the twist was that Dave Rubin blew the fuck out of literally who.
No, that was the coup de grace. That was not the twist.
I mean, I know that Dave Rubin would
Well
be
said.
into blowing the people, but not literally who. Okay, but anyway.
Yeah. So, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. On to the first topic. So, a former Texas high school teacher named Haeli Noelle Wey, 3 words, has been convicted on 2 felony accounts of having an improper relationship with 2 students. Despite the fact that the 2 boys she had months-long relationships with were both 17, therefore meeting the state's age of consent, it is still illegal for teachers to have sex with students. One victim allegedly told police he met Wey at a, quote, student ministry program. That program went on a trip of Africa in the summer of 2015, where the relationship became physical for the first time. After the trip, the sex continued reportedly 10 times, but stopped after the victim heard a later confirmed rumor that Wey went on a hike with a second victim. The events that occurred during that hike led to the second set of charges. Wey and her 2 victims were eventually caught when a witness found the exchange on the victim's phone. Wey will be sentenced on March 10th, but as of this moment, the prosecutor is recommending 10 years of deferred adjudication probation. Also, according to KEYE, a CBS affiliate, she will not have to register as a sex offender. Seriously. Now, get your South Park jokes out of the way, and then let's just talk seriously about this subject and its implications.
Wait, South Park jokes? What do you mean?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, no way, guys. No way. Off limits. No. No way.
Oh my God. No way.
I don't know. I just missed something.
Her name is Way.
Oh, right. Okay.
I have to emphasize this. If these were girls and this was a male teacher or a university professor and they were 20 years old, and they would still be getting called victims. So before anybody turns around and says, well, this is going overboard, MRAs are going overboard, these guys are over the age of consent. No, this is a consistent thing. When you are in a position of authoritative mentorship, like an educator, it is very unethical to get into a romantic relationship of any kind, sex or not, with your charges, your students. A minister shouldn't do this with their parishioners. This is a youth pastor shouldn't do this with their youth, even if they're over the age of consent. This is par for the course, because this is somebody who looks up to you as an authority figure. And if the relationship goes south, there's all kinds of repercussions for that person that the mentor doesn't face. And even if it doesn't, you're still dealing with a person that's at a disadvantage, who may be influenced in ways that you shouldn't be influencing them. And it's one thing to have your spouse or your partner come and attend your class. That can be fun, but it's another thing entirely to take somebody from your class and start a relationship with them like that. And if you have an attraction to somebody in your class, and you're a professor or a teacher and you're single, wait till they get out of the class. Wait till they're not under you anymore. In a mentorship sense, to have them under you in a physical sense. It's common sense. And I don't understand why, like, anybody that can't wait for that. A class usually lasts, like, at the most, a student's going to be there for 4 years with you in charge. At the most. If you cannot wait, then that you don't deserve a relationship with that person anyway.
And the idea that it's okay because these teenage boys obviously wanted it, or obviously enjoyed it, is no more an argument than there's lots of things that teenage boys like drugs. If you can't just give a teenage boy crack and say, well, he wanted the crack, he seems to really enjoy crack. Yeah, but it's your responsibility. Even if crack was legal, it's your responsibility as a teacher to at least not give crack to your students, no matter how much they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Both the drug and the actual crack.
Quite. There you go.
Yeah, no, it might make for a good police song, but unfortunately in real life it just doesn't really bar out. See, it's like Hannah said, it undermines the educational environment, and it sort of becomes, like, especially for the teachers' victims afterwards, what that can possibly do for the learning environment and sort of having that hang over their head, especially by their peers. It can't lead to anything conducive. So even, like, I think it was Mike that said it, even if they wanted it, it's obviously not in their best interests to participate in this type of delinquent behavior for the reasons I just listed and more.
Mm-hmm. Can I say something that might be unpopular?
Go ahead.
It might be unpopular. I don't know. It might be popular with some people. When I was in high school, there was a algebra teacher named Mrs. Robertson, not Mrs. Robinson, but Mrs. Robertson, and I actively pursued her. I was like 17 at the time, and I knew what I was doing. I understood, but I understand that there are laws in place to protect kids from adults and things. And the idea that this woman is not going to wait, is she, or is she not being charged equally?
No, she's not being charged.
She's not. That's right. She's not getting. She's probably not going to be on the sexual offender list.
That's
No,
I think it's fucking retarded. That is just. I mean, I talk about this kind of stuff all the time with gilded classes and different systems. We've got a different level of law for different, be it incomes, sexes, races, whatever it is. And this is another example of just, there a massive, massive inequality. Like Hannah said, and like, other people have said before, it's like, if a male teacher did this, they would be fucking crucified, regardless of any of the circumstances whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
Exigent circumstances or not, they would be absolutely fucking crucified. They'd be on a sex offender list. They would never fucking work in a school again. They would probably have their livelihood absolutely decimated from that point forward. So there's just this idea that women get a pass on things that men don't. It's fucking ridiculous. But again, I'm kind of a hypocrite because I actually sought this sort of relationship with one of my teachers in high school.
I'm gonna tell you right now, it doesn't make you a hypocrite.
I think it does to a certain degree.
No, it really doesn't. Like, you do stupid things in high school. There's a lot of stuff that I talk about with respect to don't trust this type of girl that I know because I was that type of girl in high school. I was the most irresponsible, I was the manic pixie dream girl. You know, that's like never, ever date the manic pixie dream girl in real life, because that girl is the worst nightmare you could have.
Yeah. Sliding
And
from extremes and such.
You know, well, almost the worst nightmare you could have. And she could be the worst nightmare you could have, because she could be even more irresponsible than me. She could be the person that will take you to court because she's embarrassed. But yeah, you know, it doesn't make you a hypocrite to learn from things as you get older. It doesn't make you a hypocrite to have not understood something and to have not figured something out and to have not admitted something when you were young that as you mature, you grow out of, or
I knew what I was
not
doing,
understanding.
That's what I'm saying. I understood fully what I was doing, and I understood via the law.
You may have
that
understood
that's
fully
not
what you were
legal,
doing, but you didn't have the self-control, right, when you were young?
I just was really into her. It was just one of those things.
That's a lack of self-control if you act on it. You know? I mean, that's my situation. You know, I will.
It was hot for teacher. You know, what can I say?
Scott,
I will fully confess, I had no self-control at that age. That's another reason why it's bad for a teacher to take a kid up on it. You know, whether the kid is underage or overage. Hell, if I'd have had a student that was 25, I wouldn't have taken him up on it. And you know, if I wasn't single when I was a teacher, so I wouldn't have anyway. But I mean, it's still, if it had been in that situation, there is a degree of immaturity that you have during your school years that you grow out of after you get out of school and you start working, you pay your own bills and all that stuff. And it does make a difference.
Scott, can I ask you a question?
Sure, man.
How successful were you?
Dude, you know what? I never got all the way, but I actually got in-school suspension with her. And it was just me and her in school suspension. And I kept fucking bothering her. She's like, "You really gotta stop doing this." I was like, "Well then, you know, I'm not." But yeah, I was real pushy about it. I mean, I wasn't like grabbing at her or anything, but I was like,
so she suspended you. So she suspended
she didn't
you.
suspend.
Okay.
Somebody else suspended me. It was
right.
just luck of the draw that it was just me and her in there the one day.
Oh, I see. So
you know, there are girls that do that too. That was one thing, because my family was like a lot of teachers in my family. I never got into a teacher. I never had a teacher that I really had the hots for. Not that I hate my family. It's just, you know, it was just a thing. But I had classmates that used to get detention in junior high on purpose with the life science teacher, who was also my cross country coach, because he was tall and handsome and smart. I mean, the guy was like an Adonis, and you know, the girls would he'd go by and the girls would ooh and ah, and I would be like face palming.
Was he like Dr. Jones, Dr. Indiana Jones?
Kind of. To a degree, although it was a nerdier version. He didn't have so he was like the hot nerdy guy, you know. And I had friends that had never had detention all the time until they got into junior high, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're after school with this guy, and he finally started, you know, he figured out what was going on, and one of the female teachers started taking his detentions, and the problem stopped.
Really?
Yes, the girls started behaving in his class. But they would have questions. I don't understand. Why is there air? You know, they would have questions in class. And he'd be like, "That's earth science. Go ask Mr." You know. And it's funny because, like, it was fortunate for him that cross-country running was what he coached and not track or something like that, because you really have to be dedicated to go out for the cross country team and stick it out, because it's a little more grueling than what you do as a track runner, especially if you just run the sprints. You still have your workout, but your race isn't that long, and there's a lot more goofing off with track. And cross country, it's all work. It's like it's
right.
It's not all hits like football,
but
it's all work the way football is. You got to want to be there, or you're not going to want to be there.
Right.
Otherwise, he'd have been flooded with participants that weren't serious about the sport.
Well, okay, Max. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was just gonna ask one question because I figure we need to move on. But Scott, just out of
Yeah.
curiosity, how young was this teacher?
She was, I think she was 22. She had just gotten out of college.
Okay,
Yeah,
and what
so she
subject
was
did she teach?
It was math. It was algebra.
Math. Okay, so I think it's fair to say that young teacher, the subject of schoolboy fantasy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was
He
a little
wants
cutie
him
pie.
so badly. You know how bad boys.
Yeah, there you go. Fucking the
Yeah.
police. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
for the record,
Yeah,
I have
they should
always
call the police.
hated that song.
Heyo.
I hate that song with a mad passion.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry.
that's all
It's
right.
Hannah.
probably a great song. I just hate it anyway.
Hannah, don't stand so close to me.
Oh god.
I don't think we're even in the same state.
True.
High fives, Max. High fives.
Oh my god. All right, so before we move on, I wanted to make a mention too that we've gone through so many stories about female teachers seducing their students or getting involved with their students or their students pursuing them and them giving into it or whatever it is you want to call it, whatever the situation might be. And this is no different, but the reason why I chose this story, normally I would ignore another, teacher has an affair with a student type of story, except that in this particular case, this woman will not be put on the sex offender list, which is a problem because if it was a man, that definitely would have happened. There are men that get put on the sex offender list for peeing in public. So
The question I have is, now I know men get put on the sex offender list if they have sex with a student that's underage. I'm not entirely sure they get put on the list if they have sex with a student that's overage.
right.
So that might be something that we want to confirm before we say that.
That's
but
possible.
society does come down on them harder.
Oh yeah.
There was, when I was in junior high school, there was a teacher at my school that was with a student that was over the legal age of consent, and he went to jail.
Yeah.
He didn't spend as long in jail as he would have if she had been under the age of consent, but he did go to jail, and he was a pariah after that. Everybody treated him like a pedophile for being with somebody who was over the age of consent, and it was because he was in a position of mentorship. And I think that is where the difference is, that a female teacher doesn't get viewed as having the agency, and she doesn't get condemned as being a predator when she does something like this in the eyes of the society around her. She still gets the pussy pass, but I think it's a different pussy pass. And I think we have to be careful about that, because if we cite the wrong pussy pass, society's dregs, the social justice types, will come out and say, well, you're wrong, there is no pussy pass, because that's not true. And so it's when we want to get right.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for that. Otherwise, I guess there's nothing else to say, but I really wanted to comment on the fact that she wouldn't be put on the sex offender registry. And yeah, it might be for those reasons that Hannah outlined. However, it was still illegal for her to sleep with her student. I guess we'll find out on March 10th when they give her the sentence.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't think the same penalty precisely should exist for some between overage and underage, but I do think that it should be the end of your career. If you basically sample the students, that should be the end of your career. You should be done being in a position of mentorship, because you obviously don't have the emotional and intellectual and maturity qualifications.
Even if those students are pursuing you. It's about being professional, not necessarily to say that women are teachers, they have this incredible power over their students to do that, and that students are completely powerless to their seductive, prowess. It's not that. It's about, you have a job, you have a profession. the students are going to do what the students are going to do. So yeah, you're going to find as a male teacher, if you are attractive, there will be female students that will flirt with you, and in some of which may even pursue you, and vice versa. But the reason why the penalty should exist is because as an instructor, as a teacher, that's not your job. You should be, separating this conflict of interest from your students. So, and if you don't, then it should hurt you.
This is not just limited to teachers and people in positions of mentorship either. You can't have that kind of relationship with your patients if you're in a medical profession. From the highest specialist down to the nurse's aide that gets 3 weeks training, that's illegal too. And it's something that you have to be mindful of. If you don't have the self-control to maintain that degree of separation between yourself and the people that you are essentially a caregiver for, don't go into that profession.
Mm-hmm. Just real quickly before we wrap up, it seems like this is one of those kind of situations where this is not only illegal, but it is understood. This is something that you cannot this is a field you cannot go into without knowing that this is something you do not do. Yeah. So I almost feel like sentencing should be maybe even more stringent when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yeah, you do have a point.
You can't go into the teaching field not understanding that this is out of bounds, that there is a implied and a legal precedent, like with what Hannah was saying about mentorship, that you are there as a mentor and that you cannot breach this. This should be, you should be beyond reproach. There shouldn't be really any kind of gray area about this. I hadn't really even thought about that before, but it just kind of occurred to me that this is just one of those things you should know. It's like I don't feel like there should be any kind of wiggle room with it.
No, there's even training, how to handle this, who to talk to, what steps you need to take. This isn't something that they're just like falling into this situation unaware.
Right, it's like, I didn't know.
I slipped and fell in a puddle of unethical behavior. Oops, I'm sorry. Whoops. This bad mentor meteor came out of the sky and landed on me. Holy shit! What happened? I don't understand. No, there's procedures to follow, and you're trained on how to watch out for this stuff. At least in the public education system. It's not, adjunct professors don't necessarily get that same training, but there's also common sense. But in the public school system, where you're dealing with people's kids that have to be there, by the way, the law says they have to be there. You could be 18 years old, and if you have not graduated from high school, you either have to go through the process of dropping out, or you have to be there, and they will come get you if you don't show up enough. That there's training to recognize what's going on, and there's procedures to follow if it happens.
All right. So before we move on to the next story, I'm gonna do one more thing. I want to do a reading of a bit by Arweg, because I made a mistake, and I had Max and Arweg both write the same story, and I'm sorry, but they do have slightly different takes on it. So maybe it'll help you guys get a little bit more perspective. So thanks, Arweg, for doing this. I'm gonna go ahead and read it now. Let's play a game, shall we? I will share a quick excerpt from an article, and you will guess which sex the subject of the excerpt is. Ready? A former Texas high school teacher pleaded guilty to 2 felony accounts of having an improper relationship with a student. The prosecutor is recommending 10 years of deferred education probation, but a judge will have to sign off on the probation recommendation. That's a lot of shuns. Wey will not have to register as a sex offender, reports CBS affiliate KEYE. So what's your guess? Is Wey a male or a female? If you guessed female, then I am disappointed, as there is no need to guess in the first place. The last sentence of the excerpt was a dead giveaway. Indeed, Wey, a math teacher at Westlake High School until October 2015, was accused of having a pair of months-long relationships with 2 17-year-old boys. Under Texas law, it is illegal for teachers to have sex with students, even if the students are at least 17, which is the state's legal age of consent. Authorities became aware of these incidents after one of the victims told his parents, who then notified police. Wey will be sentenced on March 10th, although she most likely won't see a minute of jail time for her actions. Well, so that's Arwig's take, but we'll find out on the 10th what happens. It seems like they are starting to hold more teachers accountable when they sleep with their students, so we'll see. All right, so we're going to move on to the next story. This one is submitted to us by Mike J. Thank you, Mike, for all your help. This commercial is false. I'm going to go ahead and play the video. I got to do that now. I can resist anything but temptation. All cretins are liars, said the cretin. Today is opposite day. These are all examples of various paradoxical statements, some newer and some older. Recently, the automobile manufacturer Audi has inadvertently gifted us with yet another paradox, one that this writer is dubbing the Audi paradox. The Audi paradox goes something like this. Women are paid 21% less than men. We at Audi are committed to equal pay. This was the seemingly innocuous message tweeted out by the official Audi Twitter account in conjunction with their latest advertisement that would go on to be shown during the 2017 Super Bowl. A sharp-eyed Twitter goer spotted the conundrum with Audi's statement, and rightfully called them on it, asking them if they pay their female employees less than their males, and also reminding them that that is illegal. Audi responded, when all their factors are accounted for, women at Audi are paid on par with their male counterparts. But I'm sure Audi's virtue signaling wasn't also a tacit admission to breaking the law. It must be those other companies out there paying women less. You know the ones, right? Until we get further clarification, the only thing we know for sure is that Audi knows nothing, at least when the wage gap myth is concerned.
You know
so
what?
they're the one good car company.
Yes.
And I like the
good
one good
allies.
man.
Now, you know what? This is brilliant, though, if you think about it, because a lot of the women that are complaining about the wage gap statistics tend to be those of upper middle class, millennials, those types, right? And Audis are nice cars. So if Audi wants to sort of virtue signal to these women that have a lot more disposable income, isn't that kind of genius?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah,
but
that is a pretty good.
Well, I mean,
do we know if
Audi's...
they've deleted the tweet yet?
Okay, it tells you how easily women are plied with Blarney. Audi's been kissing the Blarney Stone, and this is what they came out with.
Do we know if the tweet is still up or if they've taken it down? Because I would assume that they've probably taken it down by now.
That's a good question.
When they realized that they broke the conditioning in their own tweet and proved themselves wrong.
Well, they told the same story on Facebook. People asked them the same question on Facebook. They responded to several people with essentially that paragraph in the CONSED report that debunks the idea that there is a wage gap and not an earnings gap.
I looked it up. The tweet is still there. They're
Oh, it is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Wow, even the one that they debunked themselves with is still there, huh?
I noticed something. The earnings gap widens when you go up the pay scale. And it seems to be like the more of a desk job type profession you look at, or the more of a profession where the work is not manual labor, but cerebral labor, the more of a earnings gap there is. And some of the highest professions, some of the professions that have some of the highest earnings gaps are professions where you can specialize or be a general practitioner, like a physician or legal aid, an attorney and things like that, and where you can have private practice where you set your own fees and you charge your own rate. You decide how many people you're going to have as your consumers and things like that. Obviously, you can't decide the low end, but you can set a limit to how much work you're going to do. And then all of a sudden, you go from these minor gaps in what women are earning based on, say, things like overtime pay, or based on how many hours they're willing to work a week, whether they're full-time or part-time, whether they'll work weekends and nights and stuff like that, to doctors and lawyers who they set not only their own schedule, but they decide whether to take this patient, they decide whether to take this case, they decide whether to stick with a hospital or work in a private practice, they decide whether to be a pediatrician or an oncologist, whether to be family law or corporate law. And men go into apparently the higher end professional end of it. You run into a lot more male specialists in some of the less glamorous professions like proctologist, or corporate finance law. It is not necessarily something that, you tell somebody that you handle companies' financial business from the legal end. They don't understand what you're explaining to them, much less care. And it's not the same as oh, I treat little children and I get to make kids feel better all day, or I'm the person who defended this falsely accused person, or I get people a lot of money in divorce cases and stuff like that. If women really wanted to close that gap, they could. All they would have to do is make different decisions, make the same decisions that men make when it comes to what they do for a living, how they do it, how much they do it, when they do it, where they do it. Duh. And it's been obvious all this time. Audi just stepped in it. And I think a lot of those women in those professions know that they're earning what they're earning because of the decisions they made. I don't think there's a pediatrician out there that thinks that she's only earning what she earns because she's a woman, and not because she didn't become, a higher specialized doctor. And I don't think there's a family lawyer out there that thinks that she's earning what she earns because she's female and not because she didn't go into corporate law. And I think Audi, not only did Audi step in it with regular folks, but they probably stepped in it with those women too, because those women are probably going to be sitting there going, I know better than this. This is bullshit.
Yeah. I wanted to say a quick thing about this Audi ad they did for the Super Bowl. Do you know that Audi's been doing a couple of feminist ads for their as a part of a campaign? This, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's Audi. I know that if I'm wrong, I'm going to hear about it in the comments. But there was this one ad about it was around Christmas time, and there was a Barbie doll that came to life, and it wanted to to drive in a car, and it was walking around inside the toy store, and it saw like some kind of a princess, horse and carriage accessory, had no interest in it, and saw in the boy aisle, which was across the on the other side of the aisle, there was the boy toys, and there was like an Audi toy car, and so she basically makes an effort to go over there and get that car as other cars are pitching themselves to her, and then it makes a comment about how toys should not be gendered or something like that, while trying to sell you a car. And then there was,
and demonstrating that when a girl wants something, she goes and gets it.
Yeah. That's unbeknownst to Audi, of course. And then they did another one about, I think it had I don't know. I know about those two for sure. And so the thing I want to say, though, is about Audi, they don't really care about women's issues. They just know that pandering to women's sensibilities, according to what is likely feminist marketing executives or something, they just know that that's how you sell the car, or at least that's what they're banking on, is by essentially this sort of gender charged, identity politics charged culture. If you talk about your product from a we care about you perspective, then they think that it's going to give them a better chance of selling their product. So Audi doesn't care about women; they care about selling cars. If it turns out that the
so
best way
further
to do
reinforce
it,
that point, Brian.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's like, God, dude, when I was in school and I used to do graphic design stuff, one of the things that they would stress is that women control the money in the families. Women are responsible for some ridiculous percentage of all the spending that goes on within a household. So most advertising is directed at women.
Yeah, well, women
So,
do spend most of the money. 80% of the
Right.
money that we spend is spent on behalf of not even money spent by women, but money spent by men on women, as well as money spent by women on women. Is 80,
Right. So this
80%.
basically, when they do this, this is a win-win for them because they already know that their demographic is women. But if they can, do something that maybe they'll catch a few more fish with the advertising, basically, if you will, pardon the bad pun, it's a win-win. I mean, why wouldn't they do this? It's like, oh, you mean if we pander more to women, they might like our products even more? Well, we're definitely not going to not do that. I mean,
Yep.
Of course we're going to do it. Of
Well,
course.
and it's
This is all about
specific
making
too.
money. The idea that there's some altruistic endeavor here is just fucking ridiculous. I mean,
But it's not all women. They're pandering to upper class women specifically.
Well, of course. I mean, because Audis aren't like not everybody can afford a fucking Audi.
No.
There's a very specific demographic of people. We're talking upper class, like you said, upper class, educated women who probably this is an issue for them. They're like, oh, well, Ford doesn't say this to me, and whoever else doesn't say this to me, but Audi gets me. They understand me. They understand my plight as a rich white lady in America.
Yeah, that's true,
Yeah.
but I think that there's also, women that are not higher class women are also being told that Audi is the symbol of living,
for sure.
living in a higher class. So they're going to be looking for that in men too. So
Here's the thing. Then I'm gonna interrupt this because there's a stark difference in the spending habits and the method of pandering it takes to get the attention of women of low income versus women of upper income. And there's a very, very solid, down-to-earth reason for it. Below a certain level of income, you can't get credit. Okay,
Right.
So to pander to me, you don't tell me lofty messages and make your product look pretty. You drop the price. That's it. There is nothing else. Either you drop the price or you demonstrate to me that if I stretch myself to invest in the product, it's going to last a hell of a long time. And I absolutely need this for what I'm doing, with my life in order to make my life work. And if you can't give me one of those two things or both, I'm not interested. I don't care what lofty things that you say, because I haven't got the money to pay for lofty things. I have the money to pay for something that is utilitarian and I can afford, So you have women who are spoiled. And I'm going to say spoiled because there's again a stark difference there. There's women who go out and work and earn their living and take overtime and work nights and weekends, and that's the poor class of women. I'm not going to say that we work like men because we don't. Women that work like men die young, but I will say that we work in a way that the spoiled middle class, upper middle class women who may not be the doctors and the lawyers, but they still got an office job. Maybe they work in human resources. Maybe they work as a receptionist, something along those lines, where they don't necessarily have to kill themselves to earn a buck, and their bucks are extra in addition to what their spouse is earning, or they're single and they have no kids, and they don't have the degree of expenses that a guy might have in that situation because they don't have to pay for dates and they don't have to pay for other things that guys have to pay for. So they're the ones that are being targeted by this because they do have the money to spend on lofty things, and the lack of understanding to not realize that they're just being pandered to, and that they just bought something of no value, and it's that in between, the high level professions where once again the women have to be accountable and have to have agency, and the poor where we don't pay for that shit. My car, the paint we put on my van cost more than the van when we got it. So like Audi can't reach me with that shit, and they can't reach other women like me, and they can't reach the doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs. They reach the receptionist and the human resources lady that you have to go talk to if somebody says you did something wrong at work.
Okay.
And the white knights.
Well, yeah, and yes. Okay, so I don't know what else to say about this. It's just a funny little thing that they got caught in their own in their own bullshit. We already did a raging on this ad, so there's no need to go through that. You can look at that on our channel. It's from like a couple days ago. But let's move on to the next story. And so I'm going to hand it off to Max again to tell us about the pro-violence mindsets that continue to emerge, even in the land of Canada.
Of the socially polite, yes. Socially polite freaks we are. So, I think I speak for everybody on this panel, not just myself, when I say that Professor Jordan Peterson, obviously at the University of Toronto, has become sort of a godsend to the pro-free speech community, following the likes of Gad Saad, Genesee Mingo, other academics before them. Despite the stress the professor has clearly been under, he has pushed forward and continues to accept invitations to speak at different events. Now, this past Saturday, the 2017 Toronto Action Forum was held at the university to discuss current issues regarding free speech, as well as fiscal issues regarding government debt and mismanagement. According to the executive director of Generation Screwed, one of the two groups hosting the forum, the executive director was named Aaron Gunn. He said that both groups were receiving, quote, pretty explicit, somewhat violent threats. Based on what organizers have told me when I reached out to them, one person who shared the event on Facebook said it would be a punch a fascist type of day. A member of the Students in Support of Free Speech group met with a protester last Wednesday who said they were open to using, quote, diversity of tactics, also known as violence. This should all be taken with a grain of salt, simply because we have no hard evidence to support these claims at our disposal. But what we do have evidence of are people who pulled the fire alarm at the event and forced Ezra Levant to leave the building. He was also a speaker there. Outlets like the Varsity and the Toronto Sun took note of this very real fact, while others lied. For example, Liz Braun for the Post Media Network and LF Press, said the following about the forum. Quote, Peterson's public speeches have previously been protested, but none picketed the event. No, seriously. Liz Braun must be either deaf or a liar, because for a significant period of time while this event took place, protesters outside repeated the most ironic of slogans, say no to fascists, say no to fascists. One would think that if you could be open to diversity of tactics, one could be open to diversity of thought. Evidently, this can never be the case in the minds of tea-drinking hipster trash nobodies.
If the right was everything that the far left, that these guys that are doing this is claiming, they would already be shut down. Just saying, that would be the end of it. If they were fascists, if they were actually the people that are doing this speaking and the people that are in charge, if Trump was everything that they say he was, it'd already be shut down. You wouldn't be able to protest.
Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts?
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, why do you say that exactly?
He's got a Republican Congress, Republican House, Republican Senate. He's got if the Republican Party were everything that they're being accused of, martial law would have been declared, and they would have used this violence as an excuse. It would have happened. It's difficult.
Honestly.
No, it's difficult to get done. It's not hyperbolic because they are accusing them of being that bad. If they were that bad, they would do it. They are not that bad.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think. All right, part of the political game is it's posturing, it's theater, and
Well, that's just it.
they know that they to a certain degree that they can't do this stuff. So it's
But
not a
that's
matter
just
if they could, they would. It's just they can't because in the public eye, that's going to fucking give them a black eye.
They won't care about the public
but-
eye if they're that bad, though. If they're that bad, and they're in the degree of power they're in now, like if they were everything they've been accused of, that's just like if the patriarchy was everything feminism claims about it, all the things that feminist theory says about men, if they were all true, there would never have been a feminist movement because women wouldn't have been permitted to do that. If the Republicans were
No, I mean
everything that the
saying,
Democrats, the far left is claiming. Now, this is not to say that the criticisms the left and the right have for each other are all illegitimate. But this crap that these people are using as an excuse for their violence, if it were true, they would not be able to engage in this violence and get away with it. They would be shut down. There would be military action.
Okay. Well, here's another thing. It's like I think part of the issue is too. It's like not only can they not do it because of the public eye, but frankly, I mean, look, I'm not saying that they are as bad as this or that or the other. I'm not trying to make a judgment here whether who's the worst in this, that, and the other. I'm just saying the idea that they would have shut it down is I think it's a bit too simplistic because we're talking about theater, we're talking about posturing, we're talking about a lot of different aspects, and we're also talking about people in government, in a lot of cases who will let something happen to kind of validate their own things that they're going to say and they're going to do. So I think it's
but that just goes to show that they are not
the situation a little bit too much.
No, that just goes to show that they are not what these people are saying they are.
Well, again, I'm not.
The fact that they have that restraint and that they allow, they may be letting this stuff happen to show that the other side is what the other side is. But the fact is, they don't have to. And in American history, this kind of behavior has been used as an excuse, not for martial law, but to take military action. In our lifetime, no less.
I just think it's simplifying the issue a little bit too much is all.
It's not. It's really not, because it's happened before. It's been done before. There have been times when the National Guard has been mobilized against American citizens for protesting throughout history. This is something that has happened. So, and this is not, United States might be a little different in terms of our infrastructure and our processes, but national leaders that have control of a military force do have the capacity to do that. And they're not doing it. They're not even suggesting doing it. They haven't even brought it up. The left brought it up. Oh God, I can't think of her name. Rosie O'Donnell actually suggested, I'm pretty sure it was Rosie O'Donnell that suggested that Obama should declare martial law before, it's not something that you can just, he can't just step up and say martial law, but she suggested it like he could because of this violence. I haven't heard anybody on the right make that suggestion. Now maybe there has been somebody, but I haven't heard anybody, especially not anybody that has the degree of famousness, that has the degree of following that she's had. And I think that's a very stark difference. Now, like I said, that's not to say that there's nothing to criticize. Trump's not floundering as much as the left is saying he is, but he's making mistakes. And it's hard to criticize his mistakes because as soon as you criticize his mistakes, oh yeah, he's a terrible president, everything he's doing is wrong and everything about it is wrong. Well, no, but there are a set of things that are wrong that can be criticized. But we can't have that discussion because hyperbole. And yeah, that's what's going on right now. But they are not as bad as the far left is saying they are. And this violence, the fact that it's not being quashed is a definite sign that they are not everything that they are accused of.
It's kind of hard to believe until it actually happens, right? But it's just, what have we seen since Trump's inauguration, or even as far back as when he, won the presidency back in November? What have we seen but just a doubling down of people on that side of the political aisle? So if it continues to get as worse, like even worse than it was, like, for example, at UC Berkeley, even though it's still hard to believe, it's not that unfathomable that some guy like Trump would start to impose something like martial law against these types of protesters, or not martial law, but just mobilize troops against them.
Well, I mean, if anybody has ever looked up and actually read all of the details on the Kent State incident, the one that's referred to as 4 Dead in Ohio in the song, this is the kind of thing that was going on. There was rioting in downtown Kent before that, before the shootings. And it wasn't the Kent State students. They had professional rioters that came in from, not professional rioters like some rich guy is paying them, but hippies that went around, and that's what they did. They went different places and they protested and rioted and raised hell and did drugs and all kinds of stupid shit. And they broke windows and they looted and they scared the shit out of people, and people were told to stay inside because of the violence and all that kind of thing. And at least one of the students that was shot on campus, I believe the one from the picture where the girl was crying over her, was a student that had gone out to gawk at the protests after being told to stay inside. So this is the kind of thing, this has happened before. And that was, if I remember right from what I've read, that was the National Guard. And it was kids that had like 6 weeks of training. A lot of them had been in the military for just about that long. And they weren't dealing with peaceful protesters carrying signs. They were dealing with a riot that had been going on for quite some time, and people throwing things at them and not knowing if anybody had weapons and everything, and one of them just snapped and shot. That's...
Wait, are you talking about Kent State, the
yes.
tower shooter?
Not the tower shooter. 4 Dead in Ohio, the phrase 4 Dead in Ohio refers to the Kent State riot.
What was the one with the tower shooter?
Oh gosh, that was a kid. Right, that was a kid that snapped due to his life circumstances, if I remember right. And there was blame, if I remember right, on the parents.
Well, I'm derailing.
God, that one's I actually haven't read about that since college, since I have psych class.
That's why I'm kind of hazy about it. I was just wondering.
No, it's a different incident.
Okay, gotcha.
Different incident. This was in response to the Vietnam War, and it was so spun in the media that there today are people who believe that there were just a bunch of students milling around on campus with protest signs chanting, and the National Guard came along and shot at them for no reason. But that's not the way it was. It was very much like today. And I have family members that lived there at the time that remember that and have talked about it. And yeah, somebody who is it? Norse Viking 84 is, I assume 4 Dead in Ohio was largely a result of living in Ohio. Well, no, it's 4 dead on the campus. Four during that protest ended up dead because of the shooting. But yeah, no, it could happen again. This could end up where the military gets called in to control the violence, and it probably is what the violent protesters are trying to make happen.
That's possible. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But we should move on to the next story. So, allow me to move on. All right. The Greek tragedy of gender studies. High school students in Greece will be learning less about ancient Greek tragedies and being introduced to more gender and sex education. The plan to drop Antigone, or Antigone, I think it is, Antigone by Sophocles comes after the already removed Pericles' funeral oration from Sorry, there's so many Greek words. Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War. The government plans to drop the classical studies to make room for more modern Greek and new subjects, including gender equality, same-sex marriages, and sex education. Leading academics, including the dean of the School of Philosophy in Athens, say the government's action threatened to eradicate a historic link to the country's illustrious past. Heat Street points out that the Greek students have an obvious advantage since ancient Athenian texts, dating to around 450 BC, are similar enough to the modern language. In other parts of the world, reading original Greek text is an elite discipline, and with less people learning it, the subject of classics-related culture is dying.
You know, there's a stark difference between Greek and English. Try reading something in Old English. Actually, just try reading an old version of Beowulf. Get it side by side and read the side that's not translated. That's a big challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, you would think that with the way the Greek economy is right now, that they would try to maybe educate the high school students into doing something that can actually help grow their economy back from where the hell that it's been in for the last 5 to 10 years. But now they're actually just trying to, throw away one of the great things, one of the great identifiers of what makes Greece and its history great with this nonsense. That makes sense.
It's weird how the Greeks are the only Mediterraneans that don't count as Latinos. No, they're just white. They're responsible for like all the good things invented like before the Dark Age and shit. But fuck them, they're not quite olive-skinned enough, according to the statues anyway. No, the statues are all pearl white.
That's true.
That is funny. No, it's you can really see now the slow progression into, I don't know, dystopia, where they're replacing useful education with crap that isn't going to help anybody out. Gender studies doesn't have a purpose other than to divide and cause people to resent each other in their society. It doesn't actually do anything of benefit. And here we are. They're replacing something that teaches people life lessons. Because the Greek tragedies, the reason that these stories were written and told is because they're slice of life stories that help you understand dysfunction and what happens when you pile dysfunction on top of dysfunction. So what are they doing now in the education system but replacing lessons on that with actual dysfunction that gets piled on top of dysfunction? It's not even ironic. It's just sad.
These kids need to read the story of Oedipus and really understand what that story is all about.
Well, you do need to understand, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a particular tragedy. It doesn't necessarily have to be a particular dysfunction for you to understand that piling dysfunctional responses on top of dysfunctional situations leads to death and destruction. And there's different ways of seeing how people make these stories and tell these stories. They don't just do it to tell about history or ancient history or hand down traditions and stuff like that. It's also about understanding the human condition and human nature and what parts of human nature need to be moderated by the human brain. I don't know how else to put it.
This is a tragedy. But maybe Greece isn't the place it used to be. And maybe that's one of the reasons, as Greece has changed. I understand
It's
that
become Berkeley.
they've gone from hero to zero, just like that.
In no time flat.
I'm not.
You're gonna evoke some Vanilla Ice lyrics, are you? Wow.
No.
Oh, God,
what are you
Brian.
talking about? This is.
What are you
You don't know? Okay,
From
Scott.
hero to zero? What? I don't
Yeah.
even know.
It's Disney.
I was doing Disney.
Oh, is it?
Hercules movie?
Which one? Oh, I never saw it. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it.
You know what, Brian? Despite all this, I have a firm belief that they will find their way. You know, they'll go the distance.
Yeah, that's right.
You're doing it again, aren't you, Max?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but
that
now
hard
I
to
have the
tell?
modern going the distance song stuck in my head. Thanks a lot.
Oh God,
What-
yeah, cake. There you go.
What could,
That's like one of those songs that you don't get out of your head until you get something else stuck in your head.
so when
Like,
Greece?
hey, now you're a rock star. Get your game on. Get paid.
That's right.
It's not enough.
Hey now.
Look at this graph. I mean,
Like it actually takes a safety dance level of stuck to get that out. And
Oh.
yes, I did that on purpose.
Well,
Revenge is sweet.
If there's a prize for rotten judgment, I guess Greece has already won that. No?
no,
yeah,
no. I don't know.
Sorry,
Is
swing
that
and
a-
miss.
Never mind. I don't know what
That's
else
from
to add
Hercules.
to. Oh,
Moving on.
I haven't seen this in a while.
I've forgotten what their
Just
relationship is with the EU. I think they wanted to leave the EU, but they were too broke, so they're not allowed. Maybe this will explain why they're going further and further downhill. They've
No,
come
no.
a long way since John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. I'll tell you what.
You know what? I was trying
right.
to find a way to make that joke, and I couldn't find an in on it, Mike.
Oh, I was thinking the same. But you know what?
I was
Now-
thinking of Grease too. I was just like, oh,
Mike-
how do I? Anyway.
Grease 2.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Grease 2.
Get out.
The sequel that nobody ever heard of because it wasn't as good as the original.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? I think Mike is onto something. So if Greece, considering its current financial position, if it changes its colleges to include gender studies programs, then they can get a lot more people to go into college for useless degrees, and maybe they can make some money. But so
Wait, doesn't that again scuttle the workforce? And then they're back in the same fucking position.
yeah, I
again?
mean, like it's not as though anything dealing with gender studies or feminism is extremely forward thinking. It's usually acting in the moment. So
exactly.
this would be the result of that.
Shocking.
But
Yeah, they're going to build a
yeah.
bubble and it's going to pop because they're going to end up with a bunch of students with a lot of debt that they can't pay off because they can't work and the government's not going to have the money and they're going to end up in serious trouble again.
I would say I can already imagine their gender studies teacher when they walk in and they are wondering why they don't do the Greek tragedies anymore, and that the teacher is sitting there saying, "Have you ever heard of Aristotle, Plato, Socrates? Morons." This is what you gotta learn. So, anyway, we'll go on to the last story. We have there's nothing written up for it, so I'm just gonna read it off of Scott Adams's blog, and he wrote about the thing that's going on Twitter right now, which people are calling the throttling. Okay, so the social media hive mind. You might have clicked on my misleading tweet to get to this page. I had to disguise the content so Twitter would not throttle it. Here's why. This morning I tweeted a link to a great video that describes in detail how Twitter throttles the tweets of any content that disagrees with their political views. The video describes how Twitter gives a fake message that some tweets are no longer available to discourage you from clicking on them. The tweets still exist, and you can access them by directly clicking the links in the tweets, but most people would not think to do that. If you don't think that that's a real thing, here's my tweet about the video. They did it to me. And this is common for my tweets about Donald Trump or climate science, etc. They throttle me to prevent them from going viral, and it only happens with certain types of content. And here's his tweet, which reads, "This is literally the most important thing you need to know about the world right now." Has excellent profanity as well, and shows the tweet as unavailable. I'm describing this for people who are listening. And it isn't just me. Someone named Jack Torrance tweets, "As you were saying," in response to a quoted tweet by a Vivian Kubrick, which reads, "Look, I didn't vote for Trump or HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, but I say again, when Trump does something great, I'm going to support, applaud, v.good for," whatever the fuck that means, "First Amendment, twitter.com, blah, blah, blah." And then the tweet that she's quoting, where she is praising it, the First Amendment over, is unavailable, which kind of goes against the whole point of her First Amendment comment. I would argue that the human mind has recently evolved to include the thinking process of social media as a whole. We're connected to social media like a great hive mind. And thanks to scientific advances in data metrics, the social media companies now have almost perfect mind control technology. We connect to the hive mind, the social media giants decide who sees what messages, and they program us individually. You get different persuasion than I do, as an example. I no longer have freedom of expression in the way that most of you still do, because the social media platforms throttled my ideas. And you know why this isn't the biggest story in the world? Look over there, it's Hitler. That's the hive mind distracting you. Here's the video Twitter did not want you to see, which includes a link to Mr. Mercateur's video about throttling. Mr. Mercateur, for those of you who don't know, used to be known as the Internet Aristocrat. If you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out after this one's over. By the way, I don't think Twitter or any other social media platform has evil intent, but apparently they think that I do, and that's a big perceptual problem. And then he has an update. The misleading tweet that brought many of you to this page skirted Twitter's throttle filter. FYI, for once, one of your tweets actually showed up in my feed. So he had to make it misleading so that it would just send people here and it wouldn't get throttled. Or at least that's Scott Adams' theory. And that's it by Scott Adams.
He's right about that to a degree. They do have some filters set up for certain terms. That's been in existence for quite a while. Shu was talking about it when it first happened. And they filtered out language. They got rid of some of those filters and brought them back. But there's something else going on too, because I had a tweet that got like 12,000 views in a hashtag before it was removed, and it got so many that the originator of the hashtag, it was like I guess an initiative of some sort that tries to get hashtags, funny hashtags, to trend with people's jokes, and it was hashtag fact check a song. And I tweeted, sometime during the last 44 years, it's changed from I am woman, hear me, or changed to I am woman, hear me whine. And I tweeted a picture that was a meme that had the women on the plane on the way to the women's walk with a speech balloon in it going to the front of the plane. Who here is on your way to protest because you think your government owes you free stuff just for being a woman? And they've all got their hands up. And that was like 12,000 impressions before it was removed, so it wasn't auto removed. But there's something else that goes on that I've noticed with my tweets. Normally I don't get a lot of profile views from my tweets. People respond to the tweet itself and that's it. Every so often I'll get one where I will get, like instead of 5 or 6, I'll get 50 or 60 and it disappears. This one got not 500. It got 151 before it disappeared, and it was at 12,432 impressions and 2,123 total engagements when that happened. So I think what's going on is, in addition to having that filter where if your tweet has certain words in it or certain terms in it, they may get rid of it, there is also some sort of auto removal system. If enough people report your tweet for maybe being spam or for being harassment or something, that also gets rid of it as well. And I've had that experience for quite a while. That's been going on for quite a while. Anytime I have a tweet where I get a huge number of profile views from it like that. Either they've gone to my profile to report it, or they have reported the tweet directly and it's disappeared. And you can tell when it happens too, because all of a sudden your analytics don't work for a couple of days because Twitter is messing with your stuff, and the analytics system can't see what Twitter's hiding from the public. So if you go into your analytics and you try to see how many impressions your tweets are getting and it won't show them to you, that's a pretty fair indication that you're either temporarily shadow banned or they're going through and hiding some of your tweets.
Mm-hmm. I started seeing this stuff in my feed, but as far as I know, it hasn't happened to me. I don't use Twitter enough, though. I don't think that I'm important enough. But I have seen other people that are sharing things that'll just say this tweet, is whatever, hidden or unavailable, or however it's worded. I don't remember. And I'm like, what the fuck is up with that? I thought they deleted it or something, but go ahead, Scott.
This kind of stuff's happened. This has happened to me once, like when me and the other folks got the unsolicited opinions on Israel thing going. When we got that rolling, the stuff that Hannah was talking about, like where the analytics started flatlining, like because before they caught onto it, like the shit was spiking. It was going crazy. It's getting like I think in like the first couple hours I had like 70,000 impressions, getting hundreds of retweets, all this kind of stuff. And then about halfway through the day, because we started it off at like, it had to have been about like 5 a.m. or something. And we were basically watching it happen all throughout the day. And there was like a spike at around 6, 7 a.m. on the East Coast when people were waking up. And then you'd see another spike an hour later and so on and so forth. And then around lunchtime, there'd be another spike as people would engage with it then. But then like once the afternoon came around, the analytics they just flatlined. Everything just totally fucking flatlined. They stopped. It didn't trend. It was knocked out of the trending. It was just totally fucking gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think to a certain degree, if we're maybe most people don't pay attention to this kind of stuff, and this was like a very specific instance wherein I could actually see it happening. It's like, so to me, this is like, it's like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. It's like Twitter has come out and damn near said, I mean, well, their actions have shown, and they may as well just fucking come clean about it and be honest, because it's not like we don't know the shit's happening, and it's not like they haven't said that they are like biased against certain groups of people, and and they've taken action to shut those people down. I mean, this is just, I don't know, fucking Twitter is, it's a fucking waste.
They really should have to. They should have to be upfront and honest about this. This kind of thing should be stated in policy. We do this. These are the rules. This is what you should be avoiding posting and stuff like. And there's a reason for that. They sell ads. Mm-hmm. They sell ads to companies who are supporting what they believe, because Twitter's about statement says that the company exists to promote communication without barriers. I think this is a barrier. This constitutes a barrier, okay? So you got a company, right, that wants to, we advertise on Twitter. We're promoting this free platform for you to speak. And they're paying for Twitter to provide them with that reputation. Yeah. And then Twitter is turning around and doing this shit, and people know about it. People are going to figure this out. This kind of thing, you can't do this kind of thing without people figuring out that it's happening. Well, that just means that the advertiser paid for a service that they're not receiving. And the other end of it is, Twitter has these numbers, right? Oh, we have this many users, these many people that are active on the site, that are communicating back and forth with each other, and they're going to be using the site so much that they'll see these ads. Well, those numbers are incorrect because they are restricting people's activity on the site in a way that is going to affect people's behavior on the site, because they think nobody's listening to them, so they're going to quit talking about this stuff, and they're going to quit looking at their friend's feed, or they might not see, they might not go to their feed because of the way Twitter has messed with their feed, which is where you see the ads. If you go to your friend's page, you don't necessarily see those ads. It's only if you go to your homepage where you see them. If you're constantly watching just your notifications, you don't see those ads. So these advertisers are spending money with a company that's not providing them with what they're paying for. And there's something very nefarious about that. And it's one thing for us to, like, we can criticize Twitter because they're lying to us, and the response of people is going to be, well, it's a free service, what are you bitching about, create your own.
Right.
Which I do agree that alternative social network sites should be used, and I still say Minds is great, and it's picking up, and Gab.ai is great, and it's starting to pick up, but with respect to the ad sales, the profitability and things, that actually needs to have standards. And I don't know if the advertising laws cover this. And I don't know if they
like
should or
disclosure?
not, because but they certainly are doing what they certainly are doing is in its own way fraudulent. It's very shady with respect to charging people to advertise on this site. And they're doing it under a degree of false pretenses, and it's wrong, even if it's not illegal, and even if law is not the way to deal with it.
Yeah. And that's the thing about social media, it's a bit tricky too, because the thing about Twitter is, I mean, I don't use it that much, but I'm trying to I have an understanding as to why many people do. And I think part of it is twofold. One is because if a social media platform doesn't have a lot of people using it, it doesn't matter how good it is or how friendly it is, because it's just not, the social aspect of it is sort of vital to make it feasible. Otherwise, it's like, there's nobody on it. It's not really like very useful. So Twitter has the highest population of the ones that we described, which is, Minds and Gab, and unless you go to some other like message board or some other format completely, you're going to find that Twitter is the most useful for communicating with people, because a lot of people haven't gotten on board with Minds or the other, and we certainly want to promote that and push them there, because it has the support of the whole free speech thing. And then the other part of it is, at least for me anyway, I would never want a social media space to turn into too much of an echo chamber where only the people who really believe in the stuff that we talk about will use the service, like to go to Minds. It's not unuseful to share ideas with each other, which is a lot of what, for example, Gamergate was using Twitter for. But on the other hand, I also like the ability to talk directly to people who I disagree with, and send them messages and challenge them on their ideas, or point out flaws in their arguments, or criticize them, or whatever. Or even, for them to come and criticize me if I make a statement that's false and they want to correct it. And I'd like to be, I mean, I know this is a bit idealistic, but I would prefer that we lived in a world where we didn't need to you didn't have like platforms silencing other people they don't agree with, and also people that did not have to find other means to communicate, because it actually still drives that wedge, which is, I think, the thing that Twitter wants, or at the very least, there are certain people that they don't think that anybody should have to hear from. So, I mean, I like that we can challenge our opponents on a platform like Twitter, where you can talk directly to them. One example is the Audi story we just did, where they basically they grandstanded on some, what they probably thought was an obvious and pragmatic point of view, and then someone challenged them on it, and they looked really stupid. And a lot of people got to see that, because Audi's not a small account. And so when this happens, it's an easier way to spread these ideas. And I wish there was some way that we could, that Twitter could be to some extent held accountable, or at least people be made aware that this is happening, which could result in some consequences. Now, I think that's something that I would prefer to see, rather than everyone that we can convince to go over to another platform. While that has its uses, I'd like to be able to, to challenge ideas like right in online with people. And I think that Twitter is good to an extent. It's good for that.
Yeah. Well, you got something, Hannah?
I was going to say, the one big problem is when you have sort of a bottleneck of only Facebook, only Twitter, only... It used to be MySpace. I don't think very many people still use MySpace. But when you have a bottleneck of just one or two social media sites that the main public are being used, you create a situation where it's like having a monopoly. They don't have to provide good service to get consumers because they're the only place the consumer can go, which is one of the reasons why, like, I haven't left Twitter, but I'm on other social media. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah, still use Twitter, but use these other social sites too, so that you have places to share your ideas. I will also say, I want to point out, I have seen discussion on Minds get pretty heated. It's a conglomeration of a variety of different points of view. And it's good to see, like, there's some knockdown, drag-out debate that takes place there, and it doesn't get censored because the censor gods don't live there. So, I'm not saying abandon Twitter for other social media, but other social media is what is needed to keep Twitter honest, or force Twitter to become honest again.
Oh, can I? I'm chomping at the bit.
Go for it.
Oh God, no, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. Twitter is never gonna be honest. They will never, ever be honest. Twitter is beholden to the dollar. They don't give a fuck about your free speech. They don't give a flying fuck about anything you have to say, so long as they are getting money from advertisers. Because apparently I don't know if they're still not making money, but apparently they've just not made money ever. And they're trying to change that by making the platform friendly for advertisers. We see this with websites. We've talked about this in the past, and I know this is me fucking broken record again. Talking about shutting down comment sections on websites so that people can't say bad things about the advertisers on the websites, or say things that are inflammatory that will drive people away or make them feel uncomfortable and not, they're not safe here. So no, the dollar is always going to mean more than your fucking freedom of speech, because it's a private platform. They can do whatever they want, They want to make money. So I mean, as I hate to be so stridently, jaded, but when you introduce money, they're business. When you introduce money into the situation, money is always going to win. There's no fight there, because it's just not even a matter of fighting, because this person is paying me to use this thing. And you're not. Well, fuck you then. This guy's giving me money, so that's my new best friend.
Yeah.
So.
What you got to understand, though, is what they're paying for. And there's been something come out just today that actually it came out. The original report came out on the 5th, but there's a news story in the Daily Mail based on it today. And going back to the original report, it's accurate. The story is accurate, and that is, they have changed the advertisers have changed their behavior already because of this. They're going from using hashtags to URLs in their just strictly URLs in their tweets. And that tells you they're not participating in the conversational manner that you participate in Twitter. So their ads have changed in response to people being silenced when they post the wrong things to a hashtag. And what's going to end up happening here is, if conversation dies on Twitter, if people get to a point where they're doing nothing on there but an in conversation, and Twitter is bleeding users because people don't have the conversations that they want on Twitter, so they go someplace else to have those conversations, the advertisers are going to start seeing that they're not getting what they pay for. If they start seeing, like, I've bought advertising not through Twitter but through Project Wonderful in the past, and if I don't get the impressions and clicks that I want out of advertising on a particular site, I don't pay for ads on that site. I go to another site. And then it doesn't matter whether it's a social network or somebody's webcomic. It's not useful to pay for, and in particular, if you get a lot of impressions but no clicks, it's really a waste of money because you get nothing. Nobody comes back to your page. Nobody looks at your product. Nobody looks at what you've asked them to go to.
That was the
So
point I was gonna try and make.
if these advertisers are seeing that this happening and people start leaving this social media and they go to something like Minds or they go to something like Gab and those sites start using advertisers, that's going to end up costing Twitter. The other end of it is advertising is not the only aspect of the problem with Twitter. Twitter's administrative ownership has some ideological associations. I know one of the big stockholders is a Saudi prince that donated a huge amount of money to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and that may have impacted significantly on how Twitter responded to criticism of Hillary Clinton. You know, you have stuff like that going on. The political views of the owners of the site may override their financial dedication. And so it may be that if Twitter doesn't reform, that's why, not the money.
Well, here's another thing, just to address something that you're saying, is that instead of using hashtags or instead of using links instead of hashtags, basically, you know, when you're talking about somebody like Audi or whoever the advertiser is, what they're looking for is engagement. They're looking for brand engagement. They're looking to drive traffic back to their portal or their, you know, whatever it is, the thing that they're trying to promote. So the fact that they're not using hashtags as much is probably just to calculate it. It's like, okay, we're seeing returns more with the direct links back to our site or back to the product that we are pushing in whatever thing it is, than just using a hashtag. It's like, you know, obviously we've seen where hashtags can be co-opted and turned into other things and so on and so forth. But if you're looking for a return on your investment, you're going to want to put a direct link in there and not just put like drink Coke or drive Audi or wear Nikes or whatever, you know, what have you. So it makes sense in just a strictly business sense to put not to put hashtags, but to actually put links directly back to the thing you're trying to sell people. So
yeah, but for that to work, you have to go where the users are and where they're gonna click on your link.
Oh, for sure.
That makes a big difference. So if you've got Twitter that's hiding tweets and you've got users that are wary and things like that, you know, you may not have the benefits from putting that link up either. And that's the thing.
I mean, it's always a risk one way or the other, for sure. But when you're talking about a direct link, though, you're not leaving it to chance. You're not leaving it to like Arby's, or who I think it was Arby's Twitter account, where they do like the jokes and stuff, and they kind of take the piss out of people, but it's still kind of funny. So it drives traffic in that regard because it creates a personality per se, instead of just Arby's duck.
Yeah, they do the nerdy. They do that nerdy stuff.
They do the nerdy thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like I said, it's still got to get seen, and it's still got to get clicked on. And if Twitter kills that, and they are killing that, they're going to kill their own advertising cash cow.
I don't know, man. I again, maybe it's just I'm just jaded, but I feel like they've they're working a little fucking magic behind the scenes. They know how to direct this stuff, and they're not. I think, frankly, I wouldn't put it past them to just have blacklisted swaths of people. I mean, look, they fucking allowed Randy Harper to, use the block bot and have access to that, and made her part of the Trust and Safety Council. So it's like, I'm not really putting a whole lot of fucking, trust in Twitter and them having good judgment not to do shit like that. So
no, but I think if they continue on the road they're going, I think the site's eventually going to self-destruct. And people are only going to put up with, yeah, we have seen that to a certain degree. I mean, everybody fled from now MySpace. The cancer of MySpace was different than the cancer of Twitter. But people fled from MySpace to Facebook, and people fled from Facebook to Twitter. People will flee from Twitter to the next thing at some point.
You know what the worst thing about MySpace was, besides everything else? was when you go to somebody's page and it takes forever to load because they customize the fuck out of it. And they
Yeah.
have these like glittery, sparkly fucking Betty Boop stickers on their feed
God.
with like
Right.
words of encouragement, and then some loud ass, really awful music starts playing, and you cannot find the fucking player to stop it because you don't want to hear
Yeah.
it.
Because it's embedded. That's why.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
embedded,
'cause it
but
was
it's
embedded.
it's hidden in there somewhere though. Like you have to find it. God damn it. Anyway,
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like every so often I go look and see they're still putting glitter memes all over people's feed on MySpace. It's still going on. There are still people using the site and they're still doing that. And a lot of it
Wow.
is it's promotion, self-promotion among music
yeah.
groups and
Yeah.
and other artists, but it's yeah.
So you want to make sure
There's
you
a-
never get a record label with a big record company. Tell them to go to your MySpace page to listen to your fucking mixtape.
Your demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we should wrap it up. So before we go, I just wanted to show you guys the story we're going to be talking about in the post show. This is an article by the Huffington Post entitled "I'm a Liberal and I Want Milo Yiannopoulos on My Campus. Learn to make actual arguments or get out of the debate hall." So this is gonna be a cold read. I don't even know what it says. I don't know what's in it, but I'm really interested in checking it out. So if you guys are interested in being a part of these after shows, it only costs about, I think it's like $1, and that allows you to watch them or listen to them after they have gone up. And I believe if you pledge $7, you should want to check it out on Patreon. But if you pledge $7, then you can actually join us in the after show. Provided there is limited spaces, but provided you can get in, then yeah, you can join us in the after shows and talk with us. And we look forward to seeing new faces in the chat all the time. So with that said, I'm going to take us out. So I want to thank you guys for joining us on the Polecat, and I want to thank Scott, Max, Mike, and Hannah for coming on with me. And I also want to thank Arweg, the stapler, and Mike J for helping with the write-ups. So until next time, we'll see you later.